perfectly. It's noon. Welcome to a special edition of Inside BBI with John McDevitt and Eric Kennedy. The senior editor of Big Blue Interactive has been on fire this week. Eric, we now have some things to talk about. I'm going to just kind of let the banner below as it gives people what we're going to be talking about, but I'm just going to lay the plate in front of you, my friend.
Yeah, well, so let's talk about how we got here. None of this has happened in a vacuum. So everything to this point has occurred because of what's happened to this point. So back up, when we won't spend a lot of time on this, but they obviously plan A was to get Matthew Stafford. And so, well, let's back up before even that. So in late December, early January, Mara sits down with Shane and then Dable, and Shane's in that meeting with Dable, with the Dable meeting. But this was before the Eagles, the finale against the Eagles, and those guys basically somehow convince Mara that they've got a plan, that there's a plan in place here.
I can fix it. You can't fix this, Carson McCauley. I can fix it.
So Shane, who's Spicoli, and Dable say, Mr. Mara, we can fix this. We can fix this. So their first fix is to go after the guy they tried to get back in October, which is Matthew Stafford. I think without a doubt we can say that was plan A, because they were going to spend draft capital. They were going to spend a lot of money on the contract. They thought they had him up to the last minute. They met the demands. Everybody has admitted that the Giants met the Rams and Stafford's demands. Right. And for whatever reason, and we've already speculated why, they said no. So at that point, they've got to pivot. So don't worry, Mr. Mara, we've got plan B. And this is pretty good too. So they start talking and they start flirting with Rodgers, and under the assumption, again, he doesn't have a lot of places to go, especially if Justin Fields resigns with Pittsburgh, which Pittsburgh would try to do, but there was not a lot of landing spots. So I think they're probably pretty confident. So they start flirting with Aaron Rodgers.
Hi, how you ladies doing this evening?
What do you drive?
Excuse me?
What kind of a car do you drive?
Cavalier. It's red. It's a red Cavalier.
So they're flirting with Rodgers, but Rodgers doesn't seem to be very interested. And where this comes to a head is yesterday. So yesterday, the Giants wake up to the news to find out that Rodgers is in Pittsburgh, and he's there for 6 hours. And this is getting reported first by the Pittsburgh reporters, and then it's getting picked up by the national guys. And it's not just a courtesy call. He's meeting with the GM. He's meeting with the head coach. He's meeting with the offensive coordinator. They say no deal is imminent. He leaves there without a deal, but then but this just fuels the speculation that the Giants are not his first choice. They're not really interested in him. So immediately after that, a few hours later, we learn that Winston signs. And so I don't know if you had that brought something up with you, that a memory.
It did. And for the love of God, Eric, I'm going to let you play the video because I cannot, for the life of me, this thing is.
Oh, I don't see it either. All right.
Yeah. So okay.
It's the metallic. I don't see it. I thought we had uploaded.
I did, and I loaded.
It's from Vacation where they pick up the car and his car's not there, and it's the metallic piece. So they get Winston. So don't tell me that it's a sheer coincidence that hours after Rodgers is in Pittsburgh, that hours later we're signing Winston.
Well, there she is. Where? Right here, the wagon.
Dad, this is not the car you ordered.
Take it easy, Rusty. Ed, this is not the car I ordered. I distinctly ordered the Antarctic Blue Super Sports Wagon with the CB and the optional Rally Fun Pack.
You didn't order the Metallic P?
Metallic P?
So Winston's the Metallic P right at this point. So he's so Mara, and the reason why we're doing this, guys, if people are out there, what the hell, you're turning this into a stupid clip show, guys. What are you doing? So again, remember, there was a plan. And the plan was that was sold to Mr. Mara. That the plan was we have an idea how to turn this around. And I don't think the plan back in December and January was pivoting to Jameis Winston. Now, I don't think they're done. So we'll talk about that throughout the show. They're not done, but that's where they've settled on. And I think we should talk about Jameis, but that's how they got here. And you have to understand how they got here before we discuss him and what it means for the draft and what it means for free agency moving forward.
If there's any truth to the comments that the Giants might not be done free agency wise at quarterback,
right,
then you look at the path that led us to where we are. Not Rodgers, not Stafford. After that, Wilson came to visit, spent an entire day. Then Flacco was next. It wasn't Winston. It was Flacco.
Right.
Now you get to Winston. The contract is such that a lot of people are hinting that it's a backup contract. Now, I've seen Carl Banks post that why would Winston take a backup contract right now when he could actually get a more lucrative backup contract or potential starter contract with another team if he just took a deal somewhere else. Now, that, of course, is all dependent on the fact that maybe Winston didn't have anybody else that was offering himself. But he's not completely wrong. I mean, it is a lower end deal at the quarterback position that we've seen so far. So we don't know what Winston was actually told and whether or not you're competing or you're coming in as a potential starter, but we told you there's going to be another guy. We don't know. But either way, and I'm not going to backtrack, I originally said this is the least of the options that I wanted. I still feel that way, but I understand why a lot of other people don't.
You don't like the metallic P.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I really wanted to do, and I totally effed it up. I wanted to do it, but it wasn't there, so I had to load it after the fact. But I wanted to do the whole thing, like, imagine John Mara walks in and Shane is now selling him on the fact I got your quarterback.
This isn't the quarterback I was sold on.
Here you go.
But the piggyback on what you just said, so everyone knows. So the deal reportedly is 2 years, $8 million. Now, to put that in context, the Giants signed James Hudson to be their reserve swing tackle for 2 years, $12 million. So the contract is lower than the backup offensive tackle. However, and we'll get into this too, I don't think, and a lot of people disagree with me, I don't think just because you can pay somebody a less of a contract means that he definitely won't play. There are going to be people that are going to make that argument, then they might be right. But just because you're able to pay a lower amount, that doesn't mean he doesn't have an opportunity here. And that's my belief, that he looks at this situation and he thinks no matter who the Giants bring in, except with the possible exception of Aaron Rodgers, he thinks he's got a chance to play here.
And I think, too, looking at I want to try to see if I can bring up the contract details.
For Winston?
For Winston, if there are incentive pieces built
in. The way I
saw
it was, and I don't know if this is true, the last thing I saw it was a 2 year, $8 million. It could be worth up to $8 million with incentives. That's what I thought it was, but maybe it's we'll have to wait. The contracts I've noticed one thing is some people may wonder why I don't update all the contract stuff immediately on the website, because a lot of these contracts, when they come out, they're not accurate. So some of them are higher, some of them are lower. And even, when you see them on those great sites like Over the Cap and Spotrac, they're not accurate. Then they get adjusted. So the same thing with Jameis. We may learn it's actually more or less. Who knows? So, but yeah, let's talk about Jameis. A lot of it's not there. Just FYI, it just says 2 years, $8 million, average of 4. The details are not listed yet as far as I can find. So I think maybe the fine points of the details have not been released yet. But I suspect I would bet it's more like a 1 year deal spread over 2. Avoidable second year is probably what's going to end up coming out of this. I doubt they signed him definitely to 2 full years. I would bet the second year's avoidable year. Yeah. Well, and so we know our lunch is beer. So we're I didn't have lunch, so that's where we're going. All right, so let's talk about Jameis, because people are probably tuning in to see what we think about Jameis. So before we talk about the on-the-field stuff, how would you describe Daniel Jones's off the field personality if you had to use one word?
Vanilla.
Boring, vanilla,
Sure.
kind of. He's like a cardboard cutout kind of guy. That's
in a 3D world, he's 2D.
Yes. And then we all love, or most of us love, Eli. And for the bulk of Eli's career, especially before he won the Super Bowl, he was kind of like the goofy, all shucks, again, kind of boring. People didn't really listen to his interviews. And I know this because I would post them on the site and no one ever would comment on them because they all thought his interviews were boring. So that's not Jameis. Jameis is about as opposite of Eli Manning personality-wise and Daniel Jones as you can. Now, if Eli or Daniel tried to do that, they tear a hamstring.
And then some.
And I mean, so before we get to the on the field play, the one thing
Eli does that, and 9 pilgrims in the past die.
I mean, the one thing about this situation is it's going to make the Giants way more interesting. It's just going to bring and Jay Rudd said on the site, he said, what did he say? He said, fuck it. He said, let's make it weird. And it's going to get pretty weird. I mean, you've got a guy who will dance with crutches in a locker room, and what does he do to fire up his teammates?
After I say one thing, I want everybody to look at me. I'm gonna pass it to corner after I say one thing.
So there's a movie it's kind of a cult movie. It's not really a great movie, but it's Where the Buffalo Roam. It's about Hunter S. Thompson, and there's a great line in there. It says, "It never got weird enough for me," and that's kind of where we're at with Winston. Is before we talk about the on the field play, he's going to make things fun, interesting. Let's put it that way. Some people aren't going to like it. Some people will like it. Some people are going to be like Jay Rudd, and they're going to say, you know what? If we're going to go down, let's at least make it fun. And so
you got a quarterback now that dances with crutches, and we had a quarterback that played that seemed like he was on crutches. So either way, it's now just entertaining.
Yeah. So I know you're not a big fan of this move, but you got to think that it's going to at least make them interesting.
Well, Gary Myers shared an interesting stat, and it goes back a little ways. It goes back to 2019. And Jameis had one of the most unique seasons a quarterback has ever had. He threw 33 touchdown passes. Mm-hmm. He passed for over 5,000 yards.
Incredible numbers. Incredible.
He threw 30 interceptions, and they were 7-9. Now, a little star.
And a bunch of pick sixes.
A little star and a little caveat to that. And this one thing may have actually led to fucking us down the road. He would have been 8-8 if his kicker could make an extra point or a field goal in the game in which Daniel Jones cemented himself as, oh my God, he could be the future with his comeback win, because the Buccaneers should have won that game. Even after the Giants came back and scored, after Jones makes the 4th down run for the touchdown, they went all the way down the field. Jameis throws a bomb down the field. They move right down, and the kicker misses the field goal.
And Matt and SGS tweeted that out. He tweeted out the clip, and it is kind of funny how
it's all related. Everything is 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
So let's talk about his on the field stuff since you brought it up. So everybody knows, I think everybody knows, but everyone kind of knows the book on Jameis. He'll throw for a lot of yards, he'll throw for a lot of touchdowns, but he'll also throw for a lot of interceptions, and he's not the most accurate guy in the world. He flirts with the 60% mark on his passing, which is back in the day in the 80s, that was good. Now today, that's not a great number. But what's interesting about him is he really hasn't played as much football as you think he has in the last 5 years. Right. So he played a ton, obviously, for the Buccaneers. And for those who don't know, he was the very first player taken in that draft. He was number 1 overall pick. And, he was supposed to save the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And his last year in Tampa was the season that John just mentioned. The historic, and it was historic for good and bad reasons, the 33 touchdown, the 30 interception season. But that was his last year. And then he goes on to New Orleans, and he doesn't really play all that much except for 2021 when he plays 7 games, and he actually goes 5-2.
But it's even more important. He threw 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions that year. The only time that he's had such a difference in touchdowns and interceptions. Most of the other years, they're very close together, or he's even on the negative side of that stat.
And he's got Sean Payton, who knows how to coach. Right. Sean Payton's there at that year, I think. Right?
I believe so, yes.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
So he's got Sean Payton there. So, and that's a really good point, John. So he actually, 14-3. But the injury bug kind of strikes him. He gets hurt that year. I think he tears an ACL that year. I think he's got a back injury in the opener the following year. So that's kind of his stint with the New Orleans. It wasn't bad. He didn't play a lot of football there. And he started 10 games he was there, and that was for 3 years. He started 10 games in 4 years.
4 years. He was available for 21 games for the Saints, and then he started, I believe it is 10. So he started 10 of 21 games for the Saints.
So that's not a lot of football. And the football he did play there, it wasn't terrible. It was pretty good. He got hurt, and he didn't play all that much. So then he goes on to Cleveland, and everybody knows the situation with Cleveland, the whole mess with Deshaun Watson and the contract, and he's not living up to that, and he gets hurt. He tears his Achilles, and then Winston's got to come in, and Winston goes back to typical Winston of the days back in Tampa Bay, and he throws for a lot of touchdowns. Again, you have to keep this in mind. People are going to say he didn't throw for a lot of touchdowns. Well, he started 7 games, and he threw 13 touchdowns. That's a season for Daniel Jones. And I'm not exaggerating.
Well, that was close to his best season in 22.
What?
That was close. Jones had 15 and 22.
His great Daniel Jones's best season was, what was it, 15 touchdowns?
15 touchdown passes, 7 rushing.
That was Daniel Jones's career season. And in less than half those games, Winston throws for almost as many touchdowns, but they upset the Ravens, and I think he threw 3 touchdowns in that game, right? Is it the Ravens game that he threw?
Yeah, he had a ton. He also had a ton of interceptions, but yes,
was it against the Ravens? I think the Ravens was. I have to look that up. I have to look at the. But they upset. He didn't do a lot in the Steelers, but they upset the Steelers too. Against the Ravens, he threw 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So I think that was sort of the highlight of his season. And then the problem is he kept throwing touchdowns like against Denver, where he threw 4. Again, compare this to the Giants. When's the last time a New York Giant threw 4 touchdowns in one game? Well, he did it. Winston did it last year. The problem was he also threw 3 interceptions in that game. He threw 2 interceptions the following week. And then he threw 3 interceptions against Kansas City, and that's when he got benched. So in 3 games, he threw 8 interceptions. And I think at that point, and I didn't follow the Browns too closely, but again, he's one of those quarterbacks that could win a game when you don't want to win a game. And Cleveland might have been soft tanking at that point too. So that might have been also a factor in them wanting to sit him at that point. So he was who he was with Tampa, but Tampa, the guy that throws a lot of touchdowns, but he throws a lot of interceptions, and he makes it interesting because of that. And if you look at his highlights from last year, some of his highlight plays are like, God damn. I mean, they're incredible. He's got a rocket arm. He's got a big arm, and he will throw it into places and allow his receivers to make plays. And so in a lot of ways, I think Neighbors is going to love him. And I think Slayton's going to love him. And I think if he gets on the field, Hyatt may love him because he's going to put the ball up and he's going to throw down the field and he's going to give those guys a chance to make a play. Goddamn, Daniel Jones would never allow his players to make a play. So So Winston will. So that's my take on this. I'm actually, and I know I didn't say, I'm not going to backtrack either. I wasn't one of those guys say sign Jameis Winston, but part of me's like, oh, this is going to be interesting if he plays. Then we'll get to the part if how much he's going to play. If he's the starter, we'll get to that. So I've done a lot of talking. So you're reacting.
Well, first, the contract piece that I just shared on the screen. Jordan Schultz is reporting it's 2 years, $8 million with incentives. It could be $16 million.
Okay, so he's got to play and he's got to reach. He's got to reach target.
And that seems like the way you just said it. It seems very likely the way that it is, which does say the Giants might not be done. Because why would I build in all these incentive pieces for a guy if I don't worry about it so much? If I know for sure you're playing, I'm going to give you a different kind of deal because I know if you're definitely playing, I don't want to build in those incentives that you're probably automatically going to earn. I'm going to leave if they're questionable. I'm going to build them up bigger on a questionable side than I wouldn't be more guaranteed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because maybe. You're not wrong, but again, it's a game. Both sides are gambling here, so both sides.
Oh, agreed. But I'm saying for the Giants' perspective, if you know for a fact. So let's say this: I'm bringing you in to be the quarterback. If I know you're starting, I don't want to build a lot of money into the contract that could really inflate it off stats that I know you're probably going to get because I know for sure you're starting, but I definitely do it if I'm not so sure you're going to end up playing anyway because that saves me money. I'm hedging my bets because I'm still looking elsewhere.
No disagreement there. But what I'm saying is this could actually work out for Jameis though, and this is an insurance policy for the Giants. All right. So do you believe this is going to be an opinion? Everyone's going to have different opinions. Do you believe that the Giants think Jameis Winston's the answer?
No.
I don't either.
No.
Okay. To me, Jameis is the floor. They've got a floor now. They don't have to put Tommy DeVito in there. They've got somebody that they can bring in and they can at least function and sometimes be exciting. And I saw, and I normally agree with Connor Hughes. Connor was, I think he tweeted or he said on a clip on Twitter, a video clip, he said, this isn't any better than the quarterback room than the Giants had last year. I disagree with that. I would have taken Winston over Drew Lock or Daniel Jones.
It's already better. If you just take pure stats alone, Jameis Winston has a history of stats that say it's already better. Doesn't matter what you think about. Drew Lock hasn't done much of anything in the NFL. The Giants were banking on him, A, just being the backup. They were really counting on Daniel Jones. B, they were hoping that he'd be the guy that won that game against Philly for Seattle when you also have to take out of the fact that, Seattle had multiple weapons and a better coaching staff. Sure. And it was I think it was a Thursday or Monday night game. You can never count on games like that. For Philly, it was a road game. Who knows? The Giants counted on that kind of stuff. Jameis Winston has a history of putting up big stats. They're electrifying stats in both directions, mind you.
Right.
But if you were to rank the quarterbacks, just take the Giants factor out of the equation, and you lined up Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Jameis Winston. You tell me which one of those is the best.
Right. And what if the Giants had re-signed? What if the Giants had reacted to Rodgers going to Pittsburgh by re-signing Drew Lock? Everyone here would be going, "You got to be kidding me!" So I don't agree. So he's a insurance policy. He is a insurance policy on. They at least have something to do. So let me ask you this. Do you think it's a coincidence that he signed hours after Aaron Rodgers left Pittsburgh? Do you think that's sheer coincidence, or do you think that they reacted to that?
I think they reacted, and I think it's a message. I think if Rodgers behind the scenes is still talking to the Giants a little bit, like, pulling on the strings of, money or whatever it happens to be, and then you go and hang out in Pittsburgh, Giants are like, okay, we'll take that off the table. But I also think we talked about this the other day, and I said draw a line in the sand with Rodgers anyway. Right. But regardless, you've got to make a decision on somebody because there are some off-season activities that begin to happen soon. And you can't just go to the draft guessing who you're going to get. And
this is where people may really disagree with me. I think there's a PR aspect to this too. Now, again, I'm high on Jameis coming here than you are because I'm like J-Rod. I like, let's make it weird. let's get weird with this. All right. But I think there's a PR element to it too in this, that the Giants didn't want to appear that they got left at the altar again. So they kind of got out in front of this. So when the shoe does drop, assuming it does, where Aaron signs with Pittsburgh or he still doesn't make a decision, the Giants don't look like they're standing there holding their you-know-what, and they've done something. So they can sell this. This isn't – what I was really surprised with last night is when I went on BBI, Big Blue Interaction. Big Blue
Good job. Nice job. There you go.
And when I went on X, I was surprised at how many people were excited about this. Now, there are some people that are like, you got to be kidding me. This guy stinks. Why are you guys excited about this? But I was actually kind of surprised that there was so much positive reaction. I think some of it has to do with the fact that people were just tired of talking about Rodgers, tired of waiting, and they just want something to happen. And this is something happened, and at least they feel like, oh, thank God something happened. So I think there's an element to that. But I also think a lot of it were people were pissed off at, like we're getting pissed off at Rodgers. Fuck him, and let's get somebody else in here. And I think that's kind of, now to get back what you were just talking about. The contract tells me what it tells you too. I agree with you that this is a contract where the Giants are protecting themselves a little bit. Because look, Drew Lock's contract was 1 year, $5 million. This contract, low end, is 2 year, $8 million, which means on a per year basis, it's less than Drew Lock was getting paid. So it's basically we don't have to see where the money's, like you said, we have to find out where how the money's situated. But on paper, right now, it looks like he's getting less money than Drew Lock did on an annual basis. However, and I agree with this, if Jameis, for whatever reason, ends up playing the bulk of the games with us, he deserves to get paid. And so the contract allows him some insurance to get paid if he ends up playing. And I assume there are some performance incentives. I mean, he's got to, some of them may be like out in left field. There may be like, you have to make the Pro Bowl or something like that. But there may be things in there, like if you throw for 30 touchdowns, you get the money, something like, we'll have to see what it is.
It'd be funny if all his incentives were actually based on reducing the negative versus the positive. Hey, you get an extra $2 million if you throw less than 20 interceptions. Okay. Yeah. If we have only 3 pick sixes, you get another $1 million. All right. Let's keep it in check. I think it's kind of, first off, the one thing I will say about Jameis Winston, that again, I'm not a fan, and I don't. It's not personal. I don't know. I just never really liked his game. I don't like the shtick that he kind of came into the league with. He kind of had this weird attitude early on, and
let's eat the W's. We got to eat some W's.
I got you. Listen. I guess I'd rather lose exciting than lose so goddamn boring than we have. But I don't want to lose either. That's the other part. Like you got to have some legitimacy, and I do think he brings that to a degree. What I will say though is it's an interesting look into what the Giants may be thinking themselves and where they may go. And this goes to one guy that you keep saying don't give up on, a guy like Jalen Hyatt. Jameis Winston brings something to the table the Giants haven't had at quarterback in a while, and a guy who can really chuck the ball down the field. He has a big arm. He can throw deep. And he throws with anticipation. That's another thing he doesn't get a lot of credit for. He's not gunning the ball at a guy after he's already turned around and just stood there. He'll hit a guy in stride. He hits him deep. I mean, look at the numbers of Jerry Jeudy, who has been a borderline, I guess, disappointment. He was a disappointment in Denver, went to Cleveland, and quarterback play worked against him. But when Winston came on the field, he had that same effect that Tyrod Taylor had, 2 years ago for us with the Giants when he was hitting Slayton deep, and all of a sudden we're like, hey, the deep ball that we didn't have with Jones, we have with Taylor. Jameis Winston brings the deep ball in spades. I mean, Jalen Hyatt suddenly becomes, I don't want to say relative, but he becomes relevant if he can just break even a little bit. If he can just break press coverage, that dude streaking down the field, he's not going to be waiting for the ball from Jameis Winston. That ball's coming to him.
Right. And I did not want Russell Wilson here, and I was pretty vocal about it. I didn't want Russell Wilson here because, all right, he does the deep ball too, However, he doesn't throw over the middle. The advantage to the Wilson, though, is he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. So there's a trade-off here. Winston will, because he's a bigger guy, he can see over the line. He will attack the middle of the field. He has some mobility still. He makes a lot of throws outside of the pocket. If you even last year, if you look at some of his biggest plays, it's him getting away from pressure. He can get away from pressure. He'll keep plays alive. He keeps his eyes down the field. People that remember Dave Brown days, Dave Brown was done the minute he stopped looking down the field. Dave Brown used to stop and he started looking at the pass rush. Jameis Winston still he'll keep his eyes down the field when guys are coming all at him, and he'll wing it. So Neighbors will love him. Slayton will love him. Hyatt will love him. We'll have to see about Wandell, but he will fight. Now, what we've got to find out is, can Coach Dable and Shea Tierney do what Sean Payton did and try to get some of those interceptions out of this game? Because if they can, this guy could end up. Now we'll talk about this in a sec. This could. It depends on what the Giants do in free agency and the draft, but he could still he could end up being the starter for the bulk of the season. That's why I'm saying people that are saying automatically this is backup money, he's not going to play this year, I'm not so sure. It depends on if you believe they're still going to get a draft pick or they're still going to get a free agent. But I didn't want Russell Wilson here. I didn't think it was a good fit. Jameis Winston, to me, is a much better fit schematically to what the Giants will do. And that's why I was even higher on Flacco than I was on Russell Wilson. I didn't get everyone saying bring Russell Wilson in here. To me, that now watch, we'll end up signing him too. But I don't think we'll get into that in a second. I want to break that up and what we'll do in the rest of free agency at quarterback.
So I want to pose a question to you, but before I do, I want to comment on one thing you said about Dave Brown. With Dave Brown, the kind of the philosophy that Joe Judge had and the philosophy lately that the Giants seem to have, where we keep going and find all these special teams guys, the Giants could have run a 4 wide receiver set with 4 punt returners, because generally if you were running deep, you had to fair catch the goddamn pass from Dave Brown because it would be just hanging up there. There was a play, I believe it was not, I think it was it the opening game of 97? I think Brown was still the quarterback at the beginning of the 97 season when Fossil had taken over. The Giants playing the Eagles that game, and I want to say it was Chris Callaway was wide open in the middle of the field. Dave Brown throws the ball, and I swear to God, Callaway has to stop. The defenders are still now running, catching up to him, and he's waiting for the ball to come down. Why? This is a touchdown pass with any other quarterback in the league. I mean, he might as well punted it to him. When
they drafted him in a supplemental draft, the internet really wasn't a thing. So, and I know young people aren't even they can't even comprehend a day where like the internet wasn't a thing, where you didn't have phones and you couldn't check. I mean, that just wasn't a thing. And I remember finding out, wait a minute, we drafted a quarterback in a supplemental draft. What? And from Duke? I mean, it just completely floored me. And I was like, I said, well, our quarterbacks are getting pretty old. Maybe this is a good move. But the first time I ever saw him, I'm like, he can't throw a spiral.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. So, we drafted a quarterback in the first round and he can't throw a spiral. Anyway?
The good thing is we tapped into that. We tapped into that big old quarterback pipeline to the NFL that Duke is once again. So what
it all comes full circle.
Exactly. So what I want to ask you though is I want to ask you this specifically. Do you see Jameis Winston as being a Kerry Collins signing, or a Kurt Warner bridge to the guy and possibly within the same season he was drafted kind of situation? Which of those two situations?
I think he's a
bridge. You think more than likely he's a less than full year starter if he starts at all.
All right. Well, that gets into should we move on to, because that question gets answered depending on what they do. So should we move on to like, what do you think we do at quarterback for the rest? Sure. All right. Yeah. So, because we've got people in chat and I want to answer questions and stuff like that. All right. So we've got multiple national reporters coming out, which means the Giants have put this out there. Somebody's put this out there, that the Giants signing Jameis Winston does not preclude them from signing Aaron Rodgers. Specifically, they've said 3 reporters, Fowler, Garofolo, and Breer. They all said it. They all said. So somebody's telling them that. So they don't think Rodgers is completely not possible. He's still an option. They have not put out, you know what, we've waited. Now he's probably still going to sign with Pittsburgh, but they've also said, same three reporters said, or other quarterbacks. Now, I want your opinion on this. I don't think the other quarterback, and this is, again, my bias, I don't think now that they got Jameis Winston, I don't think the other quarterback would be Russell Wilson. I don't see, because to me, they're kind of the same guy in terms of they're below Rodgers, but they're also guys that still want to at least think that they could start. Flacco, I think, on the other hand, is a guy who would be okay with just being a backup. So to me, this is me, and I want to get your opinion because
sure.
I think that means they may not be done with Rodgers, which they've all said, and they might not be done with bringing in Flacco as a backup. Now, that's how I interpret it. I mean, I'd be curious how you.
So I look at it this way. We talked about this the other day. I thought they might go two free agents because it gives them the flexibility that the one free agent in Rodgers gives them a ton of draft flexibility because your confidence in Rodgers is and a lot of people don't have it. I get that, but the Giants would. That's the whole point of what you would do. That gives you flexibility on what you do, whether you stay at 3, take the quarterback, stay at 3, take Carter Hunter, drop down to get picks so you can load up for next year. That gives them options. One free agent quarterback right now basically forces you to draft that quarterback. You got to get a guy.
Yes.
You're not counting a guy. 2 gives you that flexibility again, because if the first guy struggles, I have the second guy. Here's what I think. Remember, I said this before about the Giants, how screwed up they were years ago when they had Jones, and then their backup was Mike Glennon. The reason it was so screwed up is he was so fundamentally different than the starter. You basically have to chuck your entire offensive game plan if he has to play. It's not the same thing as I have a designed game where I bring so like the Steelers, where I brought in Justin Fields. He came in for specific plays. They were quarterback runs, run pass options, that kind of stuff. But the game plan overall, they still designed it completely around Russell Wilson, and Fields could operate in that game plan if they needed to. It wasn't like he was Taysom Hill and all you're going to do is run.
Right.
I think the Giants, if you get a Jameis Winston, the running game at quarterback is pretty much out of the equation. He's a bigger guy. You just said that. He's a bigger deep ball passer. Everything you do is going to be kind of centered around what he does. So I want a quarterback that does something very similar if I need to replace him as the starter, because again, we're still trying to win games.
You're talking about right now with
free agency, not the draft, the draft.
Right.
The backup quarterback for this season, free agency. If I'm going another free agent, then I got to go get a Joe Flacco. He's very similar to Winston. He's older. He's not going to run. He has a cannon of an arm. He can hit guys all over the field. If you go Russell Wilson, you're changing your offense up a lot. Wilson's more of a move around guy. He's smaller. Everything you do is got to be a little bit different for Wilson than it would be for Jameis Winston. Where Flacco, you don't change much. You can pretty much run the same offense. You have some limitations, but arm strength, the ability to pass deep, the fact that he won't be running, that's all the same.
All right. So now, again, for those who are listening, we're not advocating for this.
Correct.
We're discussing these options. So again, the word is out there, whether you believe it or not, could be bunk, we don't know, that the Giants still could sign a veteran. Now, this might be part of the game smoke screen, try to maybe get even Tennessee to maybe stop playing games. We don't know. It could be anything. But if they are looking at another veteran and they do sign another veteran, do you think that takes Shedeur Sanders out of the equation at 3 if they sign another veteran?
That's tough.
Yeah, I know. That's a really tough question, isn't it? So again, don't think about, people are going to say, Tommy, you're not going to carry 4. Don't think about Tommy. Tommy right now is probably
he's
going,
not
what the hell's going on?
He's not part of the equation in this at all.
So
I'll say this.
Where I am right now is I'm like, if they sign Flacco, and they signed Jameis, which looks like a backup contract right now. But I do think he can start. Does that mean is that telling us the Giants are thinking quarterback in second or third round, or are they still thinking about Shedeur at 3? That's where I'm like,
I think it does. It does this though. If the Giants, and again, I know I'm not really answering the question exactly the way you asked it, but like it's really hard to answer it the way I want.
I know.
The way I want to answer, because I'm going to have to caveat it. If the Giants have Sanders and then Dart pretty close together, then I can see the Giants going, "Hey, Jacksonville, we'll drop down to 5. You can come up, get Hunter or Carter, whoever you want. We'll drop down to 5, and we'll pick up some picks." And then the Giants could still get Sanders. Here's the thing. We all keep worrying about Sanders to Cleveland, but let's say it doesn't happen.
They could drop down.
Then more than likely he doesn't go to New England unless New England trades out and lets somebody else trade up.
What about the Raiders, though?
But you know what? I'm beginning to wonder if the demand for Sanders isn't that deep after the Giants.
I don't know.
And that's the thing. That's the weird thing. But I think you could roll the dice. If you like Dart enough, you could roll the dice to drop down 2 spots. Jacksonville's not very far. Boom, boom. New England's in between. If Hunter goes, New England's taking Carter. There's no doubt in my mind, unless Carter went at 2. If Carter goes at 2, New England still needs a big-time weapon for May. They could also go offensive line. Their offensive line is pretty weak. So New England's kind of like, they're a little bit of a wild card. They could trade down.
New England's praying that Carter or Hunter get to them. That's what they're
at least,
and it may happen.
At least Hunter. I'm not 100% sure Carter, because of the style of play that Vrabel does. It could be Mason Graham. They are very big on their defensive tackles have to be the formation of the middle of their line, at least the way they did it in Tennessee. So you could see Hunter on the outside for sure. If he's sitting there at 3 or 4 for New England's jumping all over Hunter. I don't think there's any doubt about that, because they can also play him at wide receiver.
I saw someone, Daniel Jeremiah, or I don't know I can't remember. I've watched so many interviews lately. Who's convinced, and one of the national draft guys is convinced that the best fit for Shedeur is New Orleans or the Raiders. Now, that was his opinion. That wasn't him saying that those teams are connected, but he thought in terms of playing in the dome, the style of offense that they play, et cetera, et cetera. We know the Giants have an interest in Shedeur because this isn't a small. I agree with you what you've said earlier. I don't think this is a smokescreen with them, because this goes back to the college football season. This hasn't been since they've been meeting him. What did you say? They met
Brandon Brown has gone out to Colorado 8 times.
I don't think that's a smokescreen.
No, because we talked about the big difference, right? Everybody brings up J.J. McCarthy. The thing about the Giants with McCarthy is the bulk of their visits with McCarthy were after the season was over. They had met with him multiple times. They had talked to him multiple times. The fact that they've been seeing Shedeur going all the way back to like August, September, that hints a lot more at what they were already thinking.
Well, and the other thing that makes me think not smokescreen, but have you noticed that when everybody this was January or whatever, when everyone was going, oh my God, talk about out in the open, everybody was like, the Giants love Shedeur. He's wearing their cleats. They are constantly out there. Then it's almost like the Giants finally realized, hey, this isn't really smart. Have you noticed it's been really quiet since then? That kind of the noise with the Giants and Shedeur. So it's almost kind of like the Giants have said, we better stop advertising this.
This is getting a little obvious. Yeah. Well, it's weird because they went silent on so many things, though. You know what I mean? Like you had the end of the season interviews, which to this day I still think are very eye-opening about the words that they used. We can go this route and then trade, and they actively went after Matthew Stafford. There's no doubt about it. They went after him. They offered him more money, and they offered the Rams the compensation that the Rams were looking for. That's a lot that the Giants were willing to give up, that we don't even know the depths of what the picks were going to be, that they had all that in place. And then the guy goes, I don't want to go to you guys, and took less money to stay with the Rams. Rodgers deal, it all of a sudden, again, organizational arrogance. I think the Giants were like, hey, Rodgers is free. We're going to get him. We'll offer him more money. Guess what? More money's not swinging the pendulum in our direction. Rodgers was begging the Vikings to go to them. Clearly, they told him, nah. And so he's like, all right, I'll go see the Steelers now. It seems like that's where he's going to go. And one of the things they said is that his belief of the coaching staff is one thing I heard. The other one that I heard yesterday, it was on Sirius, so I can't tell you who it was that had mentioned it, but that it was a bit of more of a veteran core on their offensive side. And that kind of makes sense. The Giants are very young. Our receiving core is pretty young, minus Slayton. But what has Slayton done that's going to move the needle? Our running backs are young. Our tight ends are young.
Slayton,
God damn it, his truth was somewhere else.
Come on, no, he's a Giant now. But when all said is done, he's going to be up there in the numbers. When he's done with the Giants, he's going to be up on the top 10 list probably. So, like, all right, let me put. I know I'm putting you on the spot. If the Giants somehow manage to sign Aaron Rodgers. What does that tell you? What do you think?
Well, that right there says we're going DB or Hunter or Carter at 3, or they're trading and we're going to get a quarterback later in the draft.
You think if they sign, I'm not disagreeing with you, but you're saying if they sign Rodgers and they have Winston, quarterbacks off the table in round 1.
Absolutely. At least at 3. We could trade back in at the bottom, but there's no way. I think at that point you can look for a Jalen Milroe in the second round.
Okay. If the Giants don't sign any other veteran, if this is just a negotiating thing, when I say negotiating, it's just maybe they're trying to get Tennessee to talk turkey. I don't know. But if they don't sign anybody else at quarterback in free agency before the draft, they're going quarterback, right?
I think you would have to. I don't see any other way. Unless the quarterbacks go 1, well, you could, but I mean, unless the quarterbacks go 1-2. If the quarterbacks go 1-2, now you get into the spot of if Dart's your next guy, can you wait very long? Now you could trade down 4 or 5 spots and get Dart, but after that, your likelihood of Dart making it to you in the second round is minimal at best.
But if they don't sign anybody else,
you have to get somebody.
What I'm debating in my own mind right now, does that automatically lock them into Shedeur at 3 if he's there?
I say yes. I say yes.
That seems to be a common belief, and I'm not disagreeing with it, but that seems to be a common belief that's out there that if it's just Jameis, then Shedeur is definitely at 3, and I don't like the. One of the things I never like to say is it's 100%. It's a done deal. No way, anything like that. I don't like absolutes. I don't like saying, but I have a hard time seeing them pass on Shedeur if Jameis is the only guy that they bring in. All right, let me put it this way. I know I'm throwing a lot of tough questions at you. Why do you think the Giants put out there that they're not done?
Did they though?
Well, somebody's putting that out there because.
Well, I know, but that's easy for other people to say that. Like,
right. But who do you think is telling them that then?
Well,
or do you think they're lying, or do you think they're embellishing?
Well, if I'm Rodgers' agents, I'm letting them know that the Giants are still interested.
That's
because I want more money from Pittsburgh or Minnesota.
See, if you're a fan of the old, what was the kid show? You're using your noggin. Oh Christ, I can't remember. They used to say, "Use your noggin." You're using your noggin, John. There, that might be one of the reasons. Somebody's putting out there the Giants may not be done. Is that coming from the Giants? Is that coming from an agent? Is that just coming from reporters spewing out of their whats? I don't know where that's coming, but 3, at least 3. Because I saw another one this morning say the same thing. Was Fowler. He said the Giants aren't done in free agency. They're not out of the Rodgers thing yet. Somebody's putting that out. Somebody's putting that out there.
And it was mentioned on X, and I can't remember who said it, that the Giants weren't out of the Wilson piece either. That could easily be Wilson's camp, hoping that Cleveland or even Tennessee maybe, or even maybe Minnesota, who might want a veteran but not to come in as you're going to start, kind of like the Giants last year.
Minnesota's met with who? They just met with Oh shit, I can't remember. Minnesota met with somebody, one of the guys that we haven't even been talking about.
Ryan Tannehill.
Tannehill. They met with Tannehill. So I think they're out of the unless everyone's hiding the fact that the knee with JJ McCarthy is worse than they want to say. I think they're out of the I think they're the weird thing is Rodgers may not decide for months still. He may sign with Pittsburgh while we're on right now, but there's this I'll say this. When you hear everyone who thinks that they know what's going on with Rodgers, they have no idea what's going on. So they get these guys coming on, Rich Eisen show, ESPN, Fox Sports, whatever, and the person interviewing them says, "What do you think is going on with Rodgers?" And they all say words to make it sound like they know what they're talking about. But if you listen to what they're really saying, they're not answering the question because they don't know what he's going to do.
Well, my favorite part is they throw in there kind of somewhere in between. Well, nobody knows what Aaron's saying because Aaron doesn't tell people. I did read somewhere, and I'm trying to remember again. I'm going to come up short on who said it. It might have been Rossini that said it, that Rodgers, after some stuff had leaked previously when he was with Green Bay, keeps a very tight circle on who knows things within his group.
Right.
And if stuff gets out, they basically start eliminating people from that group. So Rodgers has a very tight-knit, you don't talk to people, you don't give information. He doesn't want information getting out. It was interesting this morning. I was listening to, I think it's Vic Carucci and Lieberfeld on Sirius this morning. One of the things that Lieberfeld said is he goes, I'm still not convinced of Rodgers to the Steelers. I think it's still more 60-40 that he doesn't play at all. And I thought that was interesting because that keeps coming up. Rodgers is a guy who loves the attention, but I'm not so sure he wants the grind to just play 500 ball or less.
And I'm tired, and you've heard it, and other people, I don't know if we have a lot of, and we should start responding to comments here too, but we have a lot of people that are on here now, and maybe they didn't hear us earlier, but this is one of the reasons why I wanted the Giants to sign somebody is all the reasons I mentioned earlier. They needed an insurance policy against Rodgers crap. He's being a douchebag right now. I know a lot of people don't like me saying that because they think he's entitled to negotiate and all this other stuff, but he's holding up a bunch of different teams here, make a decision and get on with it. And it's driving me nuts. And this whole thing that he might retire. Well, and I don't know where that's coming from either. Is that coming from his agent too? Or is that people just throwing that out there? I don't know. But I was getting tired of it. I think Giants fans were largely getting tired, not all of them, but largely they were getting tired of waiting on. I know looking at social media, they were like, God damn it, just move on from Aaron Rodgers. This is BS. He's 41 years old. Why are we letting him hold us hostage like this? So part of me is like, yay, the Giants finally did this. And now they've got the insurance policy. So I feel better now than I did 24 hours ago because I feel like they can go into a game and again, it may not be all good, but it's going to be exciting. It's going to be interesting. The Giants became more interesting. This is the best way I can put it. And that's kind of Shedeur Sanders' charm. Some people aren't going to like with that either, but that's part of Shedeur Sanders' charm. He makes the Giants more interesting. Whether that makes them win or lose the win-loss record better, I don't know. The Eagles and the Commanders are not quaking in their boots over this. No, if you're an Eagles fan and you wake up and you see the Giants sign Jameis Winston, you're not going, "Oh my God, the Giants signed Jameis Winston." They're not quaking over this. But it would have been worse if we rolled out Tommy DeVito or re-signed Drew Lock or if we decided to keep the Daniel Jones thing going on, another year.
Real quick, and I want to. I'm hoping it's Sasha, but Rizzo. If the Giants sign Zach Pascal, what happens to Hyatt? I don't.
But did he sign?
No, he said. I think it says. I think that means more like if they do.
No, I think the receiver. No, if they again, even if they do sign him, the receiver. This is like a inside. Someone I'm sorry.
No, I was going to. I'm sorry. I know where you're going. I think, but go ahead.
This is like an inside. Probably not, because this is like an inside. Someone who runs a Giants website, and I constantly am updating the roster and the depth chart on a daily basis thing. The Giants are still really, really thin at wide receiver when they go into OTAs and when they go into training camp. Even if that includes draft picks still to come in, undrafted free agents. We're really thin at wide receiver. They're going to sign people at wide receiver just to have bodies for the quarterbacks to throw to. That doesn't mean this guy can't surprise. I actually think the guy that they signed yesterday, Humphrey, is actually kind of an interesting guy. He's a big guy.
Well, Pascal's not small.
No, he's not. So they're adding size to the room.
So
too.
I think you're 100% right.
So some of this is just numbers.
But that being said, I'm going to go away from what you're saying, and I'm going to say directly to what Sasha is asking here. I actually don't believe it has any bearing whatsoever on Hyatt. But if I'm Bryce Ford Wheaton, I'm not so sure that I have any place with this team next year. Bryce Ford Wheaton brings size and special teams. That's pretty much it. That's all he has. He has not done anything. He hasn't done anything offensively.
They did sign him.
Okay, good. All right. So then, to me, you're bringing now guys size-wise that are the same or similar to Bryce Ford Wheaton, but they also bring offensive ability as well as special teams ability. If I'm Bryce Ford Wheaton, my spot on this team is very much in jeopardy.
And Pascal hasn't done much in the last few years. He had an injury one year. He had 2 or 3 decent years, and as John just said, he's primarily been a special teams player. On the other hand, Humphrey has had an important role in the Broncos offense as a blocker in their scheme. And Sean Payton loved the guy. So the one thing I did, because I try to find out as much as I can about these guys, there were a bunch of articles on how much Sean Payton loves Humphrey. And I love the name Little Jordan. I'm like, Little Jordan's not so little. And Schmelk brought up the same thing when he interviewed him yesterday. He says, "You're not so little." He's like, "Yeah, I haven't heard that before." Heard that before. So I wouldn't read. Thank you for letting us know. So we have some breaking
It literally just happened.
Here. Yeah. So I'm not thinking that this means a whole heck of a lot. It's just they're adding guys to the roster to compete and to have people to throw to at this point.
I don't want to break my other arm, patting myself on the back, but Dan Duggan just said another big wide receiver. But unlike Little Jordan Humphrey, Pascal is mostly a special team player.
Right, he is.
Competition for Bryce Ford Wheaton, who beat out veteran wide receiver special teams Miles Boykin. So yes, that's exactly what I thought right away. When you go and get a special teams, he can also play offense, something that Bryce Ford Wheaton has yet to prove anything on offensively. Pascal does have a history of playing on offense. He has receptions. He's played it in the wide receiver sets. So if I'm Bryce Ford Wheaton, I'm more worried than I am if I'm Jay in the Highlight.
In another inside running a website viewpoint, I was very excited yesterday to add a second quarterback to the roster. I'm like, yeah, we have a second quarterback now. So
some would say we still only have one, Eric.
Okay. All right. So I want to keep this going, and then I want to answer questions. So we're thinking right now, what they do in free agent, this is going to be like, duh. What they do in free agency is going to tell us about what they're going to do in the draft, right? Still at quarterback.
Correct.
Right? So if they sign Rodgers, quarterback's probably not first round. I would
100% agree. I would 100%
lean in that direction.
Yeah.
If they don't sign a Flacco, I'm not sure where I am right now. That might mean a second round quarterback. My wife's saying, "Do you want another beer?" I'm like, "Yes." So thank you. But that's where. So I think what they do in free agency is going to tell us still a lot about the draft. That's where I am. So is that where you are?
I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay. So what do you think?
I think
another signing.
I think Rodgers is out of the question. I think you've already broken the seal on the bad words, so I'm going to go ahead and just do it real quick. Those of you who have
You
children,
got a problem with that?
no, I'm totally fine.
Out of the room.
Dude, I'm fine with it. I normally dial it back, but
you tried the F-bomb on the last show.
I did. That's why I'm saying you broke the seal, so I'm not going to worry about this one. I think Rodgers has been fucking with us the whole time. I'm annoyed with it. I'm annoyed with it. Not because, well, first off, I'm annoyed that the Giants put themselves in that goddamn position, right? You laid down like a bunch of hookers, and you gave it up for free. And then after we're begging people. We're walking around going, "Please, sir, may I have some more?" And you're throwing stuff, and they're literally like they're turning away, and you're still like chasing after them. You said this last time? Where's our goddamn pride? Where's the respect? I know we suck, but we are a 4-time Super Bowl champion. We've played in 5 Super Bowls. Our championships going back in history are deeper than that. What the hell has happened that you are now begging a guy who is flaky as all hell? You tried to trade for another guy who spurned you at the altar. I'm glad. This is going to sound weird because it's not the guy I want. You can go back and look at any of the shows. I've said it over and over again. He's not the guy I want. I'm glad we signed him, for God's sakes. You had no goddamn quarterback. We literally kept doing shows going, hey, what are we going to be able to talk about this? We got some stuff. Nope, we're talking about the same goddamn thing. We still have no quarterback. You were begging and begging and begging. And to me, though, take all that aside for just a second. If you're Russell Wilson, how the hell do you feel? You're literally begging the Giants to sign you, the team that's begging everybody else, and you're begging the Giants, and the Giants are like, let's just talk to Flacco. Oh, wait, Flacco doesn't seem to want to come here for the money we're looking for either. You know what? Jameis will do it. Well, let's go get Jameis. Yeah, pride, respect. Exactly. What the flying fuck? We have become an expansion team, and that's embarrassing.
Well, the Giants finally did. They've said it yesterday. They said enough. They made the first move. They brought. So I agree with Neil here that I think Stafford was screwing with us too. I think part of me, this isn't it, but part of me kind of wonders is Rodgers still a little pissed off that we went into his house and beat him when they have 15 wins at that time too. I think. Yeah, remember both times that we went into Green Bay. They were after we knocked off Dallas in 2007. Green Bay was supposed to be the next team to get to the Super Bowl. We knocked them. Now he wasn't there then. Obviously, it was Favre. But when we went into their house and beat him in 2011. I still wondered if that kind of sticks in his craw a little bit. So maybe this is his way of a little payback. I know I'm reaching there, but I've wondered, like, again, I'm like you, John. I think Neil. I think he's screwing around with us. I think now that I may be proven wrong. We may find out before the draft he signs with us, but I don't get that vibe. And I saw, again, Fowler today was on ESPN. And he said the vibe around the league is the Giants are the second choice with Rodgers. And I haven't seen anything, obviously, because he went to visit the Steelers and he hasn't been here. I will not be 100% shocked if we learn, though, that Rodgers, and I want your reaction on this too. Would you be 100% shocked if we learn that Rodgers is coming to visit soon?
No, because if he wants more money out of the Steelers.
Or attention.
That too. But remember, supposedly word is out there that the Giants have already offered more money than the other teams that were involved. So if that's true, and I go and visit the Steelers first, negotiating power is very interesting. I go and show my hand a little bit to the Steelers, and I walk away from it because supposedly at that meeting, money was not discussed. It was just, it's Rodgers doing Rodgers thing, floating around, seeing how the vibe, probably, I don't know, did some ayahuasca. And he was just, trying to see if the walls would talk to him. And then he leaves. No money was supposedly talked about. If he comes in to visit the Giants, it's all about trying to get stuff from the Steelers. The only way it's not is if you hear that he came to the Giants and contracts were being discussed. Because then he used the Steelers against the Giants.
What is this about? Is it about money, though? Is it about money? Is it about attention? Did he not get loved enough by mom and dad? I mean, what?
Well, his relationship with his family is very bad.
Well, something weird is going on because this is not normal behavior. This is like
he was wooed very, very intensely by
is
the
he
Jets.
married? He's not married.
No,
right?
no. His relationships are they crash and burn
All
all
right,
the time.
there's something deeper going
But
on. This whole thing's weird.
He was wooed by the Jets, right? We saw it. They rushed out there. They got on bended knee. I mean, they did everything possible to get. They brought in his coaches. They brought in the players that he wanted, and he got hurt right off. So I think that kind of killed his ego. But he, to his credit, he had very specific surgery that allowed him to potentially come back that same season. If the Jets could have held on, he was going to try to come back at the end of that year. Comes back the next year, and it's a debacle. The Jets are falling apart, and you can blame it on Rodgers, but everything, and who am I, right? I don't know this specifically, but everything that I have heard, and I heard it even more so today, that nobody in the locker room says a bad thing about Rodgers, that he's not a bad teammate. He didn't do anything to bring the thing down. I think.
Well, what is he doing? What is this about, though?
But I think because I think it's personally, and if I'm playing junior psychologist here,
yes, that's what I'm asking you to play psychologist here.
I think he's a person. He craves being told he's the best because he got shunned in the draft. Alex Smith went first. He sat there and dropped way down. He sat behind Favre, but then he took over. He was the guy. But yet he still did not have how many MVPs does he have? How many unbelievable seasons does he have? But how many Super Bowls does he have? The first two are a lot. The next one is one. I think this guy craves that one piece that he wants to be known as the best. But there are a lot of things about him that have kept him just below. He creates a lot of regular. There's not a huge difference between Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson. The one difference is Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl. Jackson hasn't. But Jackson has the regular season stats. Jackson has the MVPs. Right. Aaron Rodgers has the MVPs. He has the stats, but he hasn't won those goddamn Super Bowls. So I think for him, he wants to be known as one of the best. And I think this is he knows it's his last shot. And he's trying to finagle the attention, the money, and the opportunity. And I don't think the Steelers or the Giants are the opportunity at a Super Bowl.
Yeah, maybe. But he doesn't have a lot of places.
Nobody wants him.
So
Minnesota didn't want him. He wants to go to Minnesota. They don't want him.
All right. So I guess I just don't know what he's doing. Because, again, I'm old school. Teams offer you a contract. They show you around the facility. You meet with the coaches. And within a few days, you decide, yeah, I want to play with this team. No, I don't want to play with this team. He's dragging this out. And again, I don't know where it's coming from. I'm not even sure I want to play football anymore.
But we haven't heard him say that.
It's so tiresome. It's just.
So what I would say to that, because you and I discussed this before, and I disagree with you slightly on part of it, but here's where I do agree, and here's where I think who he is works against him with most of the people. You could very easily settle this whole thing by just saying, yes, I want to play football, but I don't know where right now, but I'm going to play. I just don't know where.
Right.
So leave me alone,
be honest.
or I'm not playing. Right now, you've got the limbo of both. He might play, he might not play. You don't know if he even wants to play. And that's the weird part. If you took that part out, then you don't look like such a prima donna. You could just say, listen, I'm Aaron Rodgers. I've got the track record. I just don't want to pick anybody right now. I'm going to wait for the best opportunity. Let's wait till after the draft. I think everybody would be fine with that. We would be fine with that. Let the teams go and draft who they're going to draft.
So the reason why we're brought, and I want to move past this because I'm tired of talking about it. The reason why we're bringing this up is it impacts what the Giants. Well, first of all, whoever is putting it out there, the word is out there that the Giants may not be done with Rodgers. That may be true. That may be coming from the Giants, or it might be, as John has suggested, maybe it's coming from an agent. But assuming it's true, it impacts the draft. It impacts what we're going to do moving forward. It impacts, is Jameis Winston going to play? If they sign Aaron Rodgers, Jameis Winston's not playing unless Rodgers gets hurt. Jameis Winston then is truly a backup quarterback. Tommy DeVito, you're going back to the practice squad probably, or he may not even be on the roster at that point. But because you're probably drafting a quarterback someplace down the line. So that's why we're bringing it up, because whether Rodgers comes on board or not still impacts so much because we're talking about who the Giants draft at 3, or if they trade up, trade down. So I still don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Titans could be shopping that pick. We don't know. The assumption is that Titans are not moving. The assumption is Titans are going to draft Ward. Everyone's talking about it right now. I'm not 100% convinced of that. Because if I'm Titans, I want the Giants to give up the farm when I'm on the clock. Right now, signing Winston takes a little bit of the pressure off the Giants to do something stupid. The reason they signed Rodgers in the first place, we've talked about before, was stupidity insurance. If you bring Rodgers in, then you really don't have to do something stupid. Trade away multiple first-round picks, draft Jackson Dart at 3, that kind of stupidity. So the more they bring in that prevent them from being forced to do something, the better. So that's why we're still talking about Aaron Rodgers. What I think is going to be more interesting, because I think if they sign Rodgers, it tells us what they're going to do. What I don't know is if they sign Flacco, I'm still not convinced they won't draft a quarterback at 3. I think it's less likely, but I'm not convinced it takes quarterback off the table.
Well, here's a couple things, right? Everything that's been – so we said this in the previous – I brought it up about using a historical pieces, that sometimes the best outcome for you was because somebody else took something off the table.
You've said that.
And I'm beginning to think that the Giants getting a quarterback became paramount to possibly take them out of making a big mistake. I don't even know if it's Sanders. I don't know what it is. But overall, you just mentioned it. The Titans are flirting with Carson Wentz. But you already have Will Levis. And I'm not saying Will Levis is going to be anything in the NFL, but you technically already have him, and he's been your young starter, and he potentially could still be better. If you go get Carson Wentz, why did you go get a Wentz if you were planning on drafting a guy at number 1 at quarterback? You could already have Levis just be the backup, or he could be the bridge to the guy because you just let Levis play until Ward's ready. Why would you go get Carson Wentz? You're going to pay him more as a free agent to bring him in than you would Levis, who you already have on the team.
But Wentz hasn't signed, though.
No, not yet. But I'm just saying you're flirting with him.
Right.
There was talk that they were looking possibly at Russell Wilson. There was talk that they were looking at Joe Flacco. If you're going to do that, then maybe Tennessee's not going quarterback. So maybe our need to jump up to 1 isn't actually there. I think the Giants' best route, regardless, is to do nothing as far as the draft goes in terms of moving up. I don't care if Ward and Sanders go 1-2, then the best 2 players in the draft just fell to you at 3. That either means it's a smorgasbord for a trade, or you just drafted one of the best players available. Jameis Winston gives you some flexibility there that you don't have to just take Jackson Dart if it goes quarterback 1-2, and now you're stuck at 3. And all I was going to say to that is any other quarterback that we add, if you do add a Flacco, it just cements that even more that we don't need to do that. But if you roll in with Winston, and if Sanders and Ward fall down, because again, I'm not sure Cleveland's going quarterback. If those two, so if Hunter Carter go 1-2, which they're the 2 best players in the draft, and that is very possible, then the Giants are sitting there at 3 with both quarterbacks available.
That would be the perfect situation for them. Now, people that love Carter, and I get it, and love Hunter, won't think that way.
Right.
I get that. And I get it. You don't have to tell me that, because I'm one of these guys that when I get and I just got a draft guide today. I'm really excited. So today's football day for me. It's Saturday and I've got my first draft guide. So, but I'm like, I want this guy. I want this guy. I want this. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I want this guy. I want this guy. I want this guy. And I get that. I want Carter on the Giants. I want Hunter on the Giants. But when I'm looking at the team long term, we got to get a quarterback. So to me, the perfect situation here is that the Giants have their choice of quarterback at 3, be it Ward or be it. So that's a topic for another show. Are the Titans bluffing? But that's a topic for another show. You know why I appreciate you, John? Because when I interrupt you, you don't do this.
It's going to be great. You're a winner.
Oh my God, when I'm talking, you're not talking.
Oh, sorry.
No, when I'm talking, you're not talking. This is why, yes, we'll have to just cut him out of the show.
So I think we know why. I think we know why somebody shot somebody.
that chick better be really good at a couple of things.
I know,
or be really
be
really willing on the third option. Because how the hell would you put up with that?
Oh my God! All right. We're going to stay on topic here. But anyways, I'm always interrupting you, so I apologize. But I saw that clip. I'm like, at least John doesn't. Anyways, never mind.
No, we have a good back and forth. So what I want to ask you, that let's move away real quick, because I don't want to stretch this out too long today.
Yeah.
I do want to mention next week, and I do also ask everybody, be kind, regardless of any opinions you have in any direction. We do have a guest next week on Tuesday. We're going to be doing a show, and Patty Traina is going to come on with us. We're going to make our rounds through the different folks that cover the Giants. I have reached out to a couple of other people that are not Giant related, that one is kind of talking. So I don't know. I don't want to say who it is just yet, because I don't know if they will or not. But they are in the entertainment industry that just happen to be very big football fans. So that's all I'll say. And if you're a love of certain TV shows from back in the mid 2000s, if I get this person, you'll be very excited. So looking at where we are right now, okay, one of the things that we talked about is the Giants' interest in who they're signing.
Mm-hmm.
They signed veteran offensive linemen and the veterans have been some of the other teams' veterans, more for backups. The Giants brought back their own veteran backup in Van Roten, but he could be the starter. We brought in Stinney, who was a backup starter. He was a starter at the end of the year, but he's a backup. So the Giants have filled their offensive line with veterans, and I kind of felt like that meant, if you're going to go a little bit lesser with veterans, you're going more veteran quarterback. You're not going out and get the best talent possible to protect a young guy. And we did. We got the veteran, and that's Winston. Now, when we look at wide receiver, you keep mentioning it's still thin. Do you see the Giants still possibly going out and making either a trade, which I have mentioned, Brandon Ayuk, or a signing in like a Stephon Diggs? Do you see maybe them going in that direction still, now that you got Winston on board?
A lot of it depends on if they sign another quarterback, because again, the salary cap isn't terrible right now, but they're spending money, and it's starting to.
But we do have money we could move if we needed.
We could do that. We could do that.
Yeah.
I'm not adding a big time wide receiver for Jameis Winston. I'm not adding a big time veteran wide receiver if I'm drafting Shedeur Sanders. I might do it when I'm doing Aaron Rodgers, but I don't.
Right.
I don't think so. I am surprised a little bit that and all teams will do this. And the Commanders were very effective at this. They'll keep adding players in the second and third tier of free agency. So they'll wait until the dust settles, and there'll be a lot of 1-year contracts. And again, Giants fans, please, for the love of God, every time there's a 1-year contract at a minimum veteran deal, please don't freak out and go, why are we signing these guys? They've got to fill up the roster with 90 players, and you might hit on gold. It's again, this is like taking shots at people that you might have been on a practice squad or at the bottom end of a roster. They were 2021 draft picks, which a lot of the Giants players that they're signing from other teams are 2021 draft picks, who just might pan out better here. But don't freak out over a veteran minimum deal to a guy that can be easily cut. So there'll be more of those, but they've been signing every single day. They're signing somebody. While we've been on here, they just signed Pascal. I mean,
but you mentioned too, when we did the free agency preview show, right? There were a lot of free agents the Giants had that we knew they were going to have no interest in bringing back. So you basically had to fill the roster with some players anyway.
Yes.
My other thought on this is the more seasoned veteran players you get, and they don't have to be like 10 years, but guys who've had multiple years, they've had starts, or they've at least played a significant number of snaps, whether it be special teams plays or they played offense or defensive snaps. When you get a number of those guys, it does potentially, I'm not saying it definitely does, it does potentially give you the option to lessen the number of draft picks you're going to have, because you're filling your roster with more backups in case you're deciding a move up. I'm trying to get.
correct.
So you kind of have to weigh both. I don't think we're there yet, but just saying. But I'm with you. Don't fret over stuff like this. Now, one thing I want to share. I just saw this report. Is it Jeremy Fowler of ESPN? Someone else is sharing it, so I'm only seeing part of his name.
He was the guy that I heard this morning.
So his report: the Cowboys are a team to watch in the trade market for Patriots quarterback Joe Milton III. The Patriots are exploring a trade. Several teams are interested. One team to potentially watch for is the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. And the Milton stuff is getting, again, if the Giants had traded for Milton, I'd be a little excited, but the Milton stuff's getting a little out of hand too. This was a guy that a lot of us,
one game,
we looked at the draft last year, and you and I talked about him. We were like, maybe take a shot on him. You never know how it might pan out. And then he plays one game, like you just mentioned, and everybody's saying, oh my God, we need to trade for him. So let's tap the brakes a little bit on that. I mean, so again, it's an option, but it's not like, I think, again, everyone's trying to find a good option, and sometimes we overreact to things. So
Matt Flynn for Green Bay threw for 500 yards in a game in the last game of the season a number of years ago. And then in the offseason, Seattle signed him for something like $50 million over X number of years, and he basically never played for them.
And he bombed. Yeah. So again, if he was really good, the Patriots may want to even have other teams see that more in the preseason and then really get something for him. So they may feel like, this is about as good as we're going to get for him because his selling point's so high. So
right.
So again, I would inquire, but again, that's not to me, that's not the answer. I think Dallas is that's another topic for another show, but Dallas is in a strange spot. So, and that their owner's not looking healthy to me. I don't know what's going to happen there. So, so I think we can wrap this up soon, right?
I think one thing that we to look for is really, like you just said, do they sign another veteran? If they do, that doesn't mean that we won't go quarterback at 3, but it does give us the ammunition to maybe move down a little bit if we're willing to risk it. Again, every single one of us doing this, everybody in chat, and every single other person who comments on anything that they want to comment when it comes about football is all doing it from this idea that we have knowledge based on what we've heard from these other people. There isn't anybody that knows exactly what the NFL teams really think about Shedeur Sanders. Nobody knows that. Because if they did, it would basically be telling every other team that's involved exactly what they're thinking, and you're not going to do that. So all these guys that report, it's why you hear the risers and fallers after the combine or pro days. There are no risers and fallers. Teams already knew who they were interested in. You're just now hearing about it, and that makes it a riser or faller. Shedeur Sanders, for all we know, is on some teams' list as the number 1 quarterback in a draft, and for other teams, they're not even in the first round. It really depends on who those teams are and where they are. If they're anywhere near where we're picking and they think he's a second-round guy, there's a possibility he slides, which means we might move down and still get the guy. We might have to move up to get the guy. We might be able to get Ward and not even move an inch. You just don't know, but I think you're right on. What the Giants do still over free agency at quarterback, if we bring in anybody, that means they're looking for a little flexibility. If they bring in Rodgers, I think you can cross quarterback at 3 off completely.
And so say the Giants are all in on Shedeur and they want Shedeur, but Cleveland takes him. Now they at least have an insurance policy in Jameis. Now they're like, we don't have to do something really stupid, and they can take Hunter or they can take Carter at 3 and not do something really, really stupid. So he gives them a little bit. Now the big question is, does he save Dable's job in that scenario? So can you imagine your fate being tied to anyways.
Well, to be honest, I if I'm Daboll, I'd rather that than Daniel Jones. Yeah, if we had the picture of Daniel Jones at that Zoom interview he had back in the spring when he looked so, it was either petrified or borderline insane or a stone out of his gourd. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Did you see that Daniel Jones the other day was apparently in some sort of economics class at a college in North Carolina?
No.
I mean, this guy, Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones is to quarterback economics what Bernie Madoff was to financial investing. I mean, he's the guy. Daniel Jones was a pyramid scheme all unto himself. So anyway, that being said, I'm just curious. I don't know. I'm asking you, but I'll ask Chad too. In one of our upcoming shows, it would be kind of cool if we did it 1 or 2 or 3 before we get to the draft, which we will be live during the draft. We will be live streaming.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
But should we do? Maybe we should do a mock draft. We should do, and we should do the first one.
Mock drafts suck.
But they're fun to do because if we split the teams up, like if we go odds evens, and we'll take turns different times that we'll do it. You get the evens one time, I'll get the odds, I'll get the evens next time, you get the odds, and that way you can kind of see how the players may fall, and we can involve people in chat. We could have people in chat.
You know the batting average on mock drafts for even the experts like the Mel Kipers of the world? It's a train wreck.
But do you know the interest level in mock drafts?
I know it's out through the roof, which I don't really understand.
So what are you doing shooting our audience in the foot?
There are podcasters, all they do is every few days they do a new mock draft.
Eric is the opposite of the Greatest Showman. Every opportunity we get to kind of throw something in there, he's like, "Oh, those suck." I'm like, "No, dude, don't shoot them down." I'm not saying they're realistic.
There are people giving us grief.
It's fun.
In our preview show that we thought the Giants might have a decent season.
Listen,
you said the Giants were going
to, in all honesty,
2 or 3 beers in, and we're like, yeah, the Giants will do pretty good this year.
No, but I mean, truthfully, though, everything worked out in many ways the way that we said. If it went badly, this is why. If you had to do this, right? Go back if you're new to the show and see what we were saying. One of the things,
no one's going to do that.
No, I got you. But one of the things that we talked about very early on, in fact, before we switched, I think it was before we moved to a much different setup. We were doing them still, I think, on Blog Talk is when we did the first ones. But we talked about Daniel Jones' biggest problem. The thing that he had to do was lead the receivers in the short passing game, because that would almost be a de facto run game for them. And he just couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it. I mean, he couldn't hit people in stride, and that was a downfall.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say some of the other things we talked about did happen. Dallas came back to the field. Other teams, there was a whole bunch of teams that were at the bottom level of the wild card thing. The Giants just shit the bed. They absolutely.
I know, but there are people out there that go, "You said." So I can't even imagine a mock draft. Eric said so and so was going to go 4 overall. So to me that's like fantasy.
I had a guy. People seem to love when I tell the stories. Years ago, I had my own radio show back in Vermont, and one of the first things that we did before I actually had our show, which we called it Sports Talk with a Chatback, before we did our actual first show, to prove whether or not a show would even work, I convinced my boss to let me just do a Saturday NFL draft preview show.
Right.
And so I brought in a guest, a local semi-pro football player came in who I called their games on the radio. They were the Vermont Ice Storm back then. I was calling their games on the radio, and I had him come in and we were talking, and I had predicted at that point Ryan Shazier to the Steelers. And he was like, the Steelers don't need a linebacker. If they take a linebacker, I'll eat my hat. I brought him back on the show later, and I literally, it was really fun. I had a plate with a hat on it, and I put a bunch of sauce on it. He obviously didn't eat the hat, but it was pretty funny that I was like, he got on there. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry. He was like, you called it. I love those things because I'll make statements, and if they're wrong, they're wrong. But you know what? I'm willing to bet that I'm right more often than I'm wrong. So I'm okay with it.
A little ego going there, John.
I'm not saying but you spend a lot of time paying attention to what's going on. You listen to the right people. You look and have your own opinion. That's my big thing. Have your own opinion. Don't spew what everybody else freaking tells you. Have your own opinion.
Right.
And I stepped down off my soapbox.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And our audience is telling us this.
The crime you've committed was very serious. And before I sentence you, I'd like to say a few words about your arrest record. What the hell?
Yo, the sign is real simple, B. It says wrap it up. Wrap that up, B.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Man, you want some too? You better wrap it up. You better wrap that gavel up, B.
On that note, I think we should wrap it up.
That's how I ended up with triplets years ago. So anyway, we will finish this show, and we will be back on Tuesday night. We'll have a show. I don't know if we're going to do it live or not. I suspect
unless Aaron Rodgers signs in an hour,
and then we'll jump back on. So we'll hop back on, whenever, but Tuesday I think it'll be recorded. I think we'll record it and then put it up. We'll do another live show later on the end of next week. And then we're rolling into draft time. So,
we got to start pivoting to the draft. So last prediction, do the Giants sign another free agent quarterback? Moving on a spot, Eagle, here's your Eagle.
Yeah, well, it's been so hard to predict what they'll do.
I know.
If you told me after all the guys they saw that they would see Jameis Winston and sign him a couple days later, I'm like, what the hell? I'm going to say yes, they will, and I think it's going to be Joe Flacco.
Okay, I'm still think I have visions of Shador. I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't say they wouldn't draft somebody. You asked me if they're going to sign a free agent.
It's kind of harder to see if they sign Flacco and draft Shador. To me, it seems overkill at that point. But
then you're guaranteeing you can't go into a season with Winston and Shador as your only quarterbacks. That means you're going to carry Tommy DeVito, and I don't think they're going to carry Tommy DeVito. I think they'll have another veteran.
3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, but you're going after everything that's happened in the last few years, and you just mentioned Winston's been injured a few times over the last years. When he's played extended time, he's gotten hurt.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible. I wonder at some point how much overkill. I think if they add Flacco, I don't discount them drafting Shador. I just have visions of Shador. You might be right. I don't think.
Well, I still think they'll draft. I still think they'll draft.
If they sign Russell Wilson, I'm going to be really confused.
Well, that's just like what
I'm like. What? Because to me, I'm not sure what role he serves at that point.
Like my thought would be, if you're going to sign Russell Wilson, why the hell did you do it when he showed up at the stadium, borderline begging you to sign?
So you think? I think Russell Wilson's out of the picture.
I think Russell Wilson's out of the picture.
Okay, but Flacco's not.
I don't think Flacco's out of the picture.
Now, if we're wrong, we're going to get called out on it.
You're either wrong unless they go and if they sign Wilson, I'm shocked.
I don't get it. If they sign Wilson, I don't get it.
If fundamentally
we're going to let these two fight it out for the starting job.
Yeah, but it fundamentally wouldn't make any sense. Like
why would Wilson do that too? Why would Wilson?
The only reason I could see that you would even do that is if you actually wanted Wilson, but you want him at less money, so you sign Winston first to get Wilson's number down. But that's ridiculous because you're still spending way more money than you had to. You could have just spent more money on Wilson and then brought in Flacco cheaper.
I don't agree with you. I don't see him doing it. So
yeah, that seems odd.
If they sign it, I'm going to be like, what are they doing? So
right.
Okay. All right. Last comment from me. I swear, I feel better today than I did yesterday. I feel better. I feel better about.
Yes.
I'm not like we've got the division, but I feel better than what we did, and I'm like excited for. We're gonna get weird. We're gonna get weird. Here we go. Guys, wait a minute. Do I still have it? Wait a minute. I just pulled my groin watching that.
I'm gonna delete that video just so that can't be played 16 times the next episode that we have.
Okay.
Your last thing on him specifically, the percentage chance that he's the day one starter next year.
Oh, that's a great question. I still think Shador ends up with the Giants, but I don't think he starts, and I think Jameis starts the season. That's my prediction right now on this date. So
you're saying like 60-70% chance he's the starter day one.
You're gonna hold me to percentage chance.
Well, that was the question.
Yes. I would say there's a 78% chance that Jameis is the starter.
Wow,
very specific. Aaron Rodgers, no. Aaron Rodgers is going to be the starter.
I'm going to go 50-50 at the moment because I still think something's coming. I just don't know which one.
Wait a minute, you can't stop the show on that. What do you mean something's coming?
Well, I think they're still going to either sign another vet free agent quarterback, which
you said Flacco,
which is competition. So I can't guarantee that Winston's starting. So I think it's 50-50 at the moment. At the draft, again, I'm still not convinced that Ward doesn't fall to 3. I think the Giants could end up with a rookie quarterback that ends up beating out everybody at number 1. So for the moment, I'm saying Winston's 50-50 to be the day 1 starter.
You want to see a BBI meltdown? BigBlueInteractive.com. You want to see a BBI meltdown? Ward's there at 3, and they draft Shador.
That is, you and I talked about this real quick. The attention that they've given him and the lack of talking even a little bit by anybody else, by the way, not the Giants, anybody else about Ward and the Giants has me concerned that they think Sanders is the guy. But by the way, the most absolute guaranteed like bonanza situation for the Giants is both quarterbacks are there at 3. That would be huge. It's even more so if both quarterbacks are there and somehow Hunter and Carter are still there, because there's a lot of talk that a Campbell or a Graham could go to one of those teams. Cleveland has huge offensive line issues. So they're not out of the offensive line field, but I just don't see any of the offensive linemen going there.
I'm calling it now. Giants, both quarterbacks are there at 3, and the Giants draft a running back at 3.
Jesus Christ. Look at this. Steven just asked you to talk him off the roof. I think you just made him jump.
We're going to get a transformation. Again, that running back's going to be really, really good. I'm not advocating draft.
Oh, my God. Shut up.
But I just want that guy to stay away from Dallas. I don't want him in Dallas.
I don't care what team he goes to.
Well, you will. If
Why?
He's a superstar.
Saquon Barkley went to us. What did it do for us?
He went to Philadelphia and he won a Super Bowl.
Right. Let him go to Dallas. He spends a couple of years behind Dallas's crumbling organization and then goes somewhere else and wins the Super Bowl.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
Maybe it
don't
comes to
jinx
us.
it. Don't jinx it. That's why I couldn't watch a football game with you. I'm against. Yes, I'm against the. I'm a big superstitious guy with football. If you start telling me things like that during a football game, I'm like, Johnny, get out of here.
Oh yeah, you think you're bad. If you talk to me during the play, I'm going to be pissed. That's why streaming is going to be really hard to do, because I don't like it when people talk to me.
Yeah, there were people that wanted to do the Super Bowl party over here when the Giants were playing. I'm like, we're not doing a Super Bowl party when the Giants are playing. That there's no way you don't want to be anywhere near me when the Giants are in the Super Bowl. No.
Yeah. Well,
on that note, all right, wrap it up.
So subscribe. Man, we are getting so close. We're at 958. Now we're across multiple platforms, so that does kind of hurt us in some cases. Some people watch. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on Pocket Cast. I mean, it's all over the place. So and just keep an ear out. Keep an eye out on X. If you see when I snag somebody, I'm trying real hard, and it'll be a coup, I think, if we could get them. It'll be interesting. Let's just say you just got to carry the Clevin. So with that note, I'll sign off here, and if you caught what that is, you'll know who I'm talking about. So we'll catch you again real soon, and thanks for watching.